Right, good afternoon, everybody. It's 4 o'clock and I'll call the Plan Commission meeting to order. I'll call the roll. John? Here. Kevin? Here. Marilyn? Here. Jerry? Here. Braden? Here. All right, thank you. If everyone could stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes state aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. All right. Item 5, resolution number 115-2425 by Alderpersons Mitchell and Perella adopting public participation procedures regarding the City Sheboygan Comprehensive Plan. Elise, staff report.
The city is working on an update to its comprehensive plan. As part of the comprehensive plan, public participation plays a large role. The Plan Commission is reviewing a resolution to adopt public participation procedures regarding the comprehensive plan update.
Thanks. Questions on this item? Motions on this item?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Final thoughts? Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Brian? Then if you could please state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes.
My name is Brian Kelly. I live at 2006 South 9th Street. There's just 2 comments I had on this. With the marina and master plan that was done recently, it was a little hard to access the plan online. When I asked for like the actual plan, I was just sent like what the presentation was that was given to council. So it'd be great if the city could like actually post the plan online so people could get access to it. I know the actual document only referenced making it available at City Hall. I don't know how many people from the public would actually come to City Hall to view that. So it'd be great to have that online. And then I think comments were told to be addressed to the, can't remember, I think it was like the planning and zoning, the head of that. As far as I know, I think that position is open and not filled right now. So it's not clear who to send that comment to. So my only comments there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
At the moment, I'll wear the hat of representative of the Town of Wilson Plan Commission and encourage.
Roger, can you state your name and address?
Yes, Roger Miller, 202 Pioneer Road. Even before state of Wisconsin mandated local communities to do comprehensive plans, we in the Town of Wilson did strategic plans before that, and City of Sheboygan did also. A very important aspect is the intergovernmental collaboration, cooperation component that's required by law, but there have been some periods of time in both Town of Wilson history as well as City of Sheboygan history that one party or the other or both have not done that. With new advent of relatively, even though there are many experienced members that go back for many years in this Plan Commission, new members of government, aldermen, new positions in planning, I'd like to invite and encourage that we actually do facilitative intergovernmental plan, particularly at the Plan Commission level, collaboration, because we have many compatible interests, and the Town of Wilson has always, even at the toughest times, intergovernmentally between Town of Wilson and City of Sheboygan, we've always had a very functional, effective relationship at the Department of Public Works level. And now we have new needs and opportunities in that staff. So what I like to see in documents is to actually do what we say we do and is to invite and encourage the appropriate levels of the intergovernmental collaboration, which is fully consistent with what you're doing in updating your comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item 6, Kohler Company time extension request to a previous approved conditional use permit to construct a new golf course on Kohler Company property north of Kohler Andre State Park between Black River and Lake Michigan. Elise, staff report.
On December 15, 2020, the City of Sheboygan Plan Commission approved a conditional use permit to construct a new golf course on Kohler Co. property north of Kohler Andre State Park between Black River and Lake Michigan. The Plan Commission incorporated a tolling provision in the conditions of the approved conditional use permit to allow for the resolution of the 7 lawsuits challenging Kohler's golf course plans. Kohler Co. had 1 year from the date that all lawsuits were resolved to either initiate development or request an extension. All lawsuits were resolved by December 4th, 2023. Kohler Co. is now requesting an extension to their conditional use permit approved on December 15th, 2020. The Plan Commission is not reviewing a new site plan, only approving or denying an extension of the previously approved conditional use permit. If there are revisions to the previously approved plans, Kohler Co. may be required to obtain a new conditional use permit.
Thank you. I'm going to call upon the city attorney, Chuck Adams. Chuck, you provided me with a legal document regarding this matter that's before us today. Can you just kind of provide a scope for the commission of what's before us today and what we're discussing?
Yeah, so before you today, you are really only making a decision on an extension of the permanent use. That's all that's happening today. You don't have the ability to sort of relitigate the conditional use permit that was granted in 2020. In thinking about what basis would you have to either grant or deny the extension of the conditional use, you have to take a couple of things into account. First, the legislature has placed some limits on what cities can do as far as conditional use permits and not granting those conditional use permits. You are required to grant conditional use permits when those permits fit within the guidelines that are in the city's code or within state statutes. Here you've made that determination already. You or your predecessors on the Plan Commission have made that determination already. So today you can't make a decision based on the site plan or those kinds of things. The only thing you can consider is there a basis for not extending the conditional use permit because it goes against the interests of the city as published already in the code. I could find really in looking at this, the only basis that I could see for denying an extension of a permanent CUP like this would be if the Kohler Company were using this as a stalking horse to basically prevent development around the area and had no intent to actually engage in the development. You certainly may ask questions about whether they intend to enter into that development, and if you find that this is all a ruse and there is no intent to enter into that development, you may choose to not grant the extension. However, if you find that nothing has really changed other than that they need the time in order to basically fulfill the requirements that you placed on them to work with the DNR and to follow all the various different codes, then realistically you don't have much authority at all and you would have to grant the extension to the conditional use permit.
Questions for the city attorney? All right, I'm going to call on you later, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay.
Does the applicant have any additional comments you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We appreciate your time and consideration of our request tonight. My name is Debbie Tomczyk. I'm an attorney representing Kohler Company. And we think this is a simple request. This is just the request to extend the conditional use permit that was previously granted by this body. That conditional use permit, as it was approved, including that tolling limitation that Elise mentioned for resolution of the 7 lawsuits that were lodged against our project. 6 of those 7 were resolved in favor of letting the project to go forward, but the 7th did require and had a finding that the DNR did not have sufficient information to issue the wetland individual permit, which it did issue back in 2019. So that decision necessitates at least some kind of re-permitting or plan change. But there is no change. There is no amendment in front of you today. We're not proposing anything different than what was considered and approved in 2020 at this point. We just want to be respectful of the Plan Commission and the city staff's time and resources, so we're not representing lots of plans and wasting time and resource. There is no new evidence to be presented here other than our time request, but we do remain committed to the project. In answer to Attorney Adams' questions, this is not a stalking horse. We do have the intention to develop and to satisfy the conditions to our conditional use permit. We remain committed to that, and we are committed to achieve all of the economic, recreational, and tourism benefits described in that conditional use permit, while, if anything, reducing impacts on natural resources. Kohler remains committed to meet all requirements and conditions in the city code and in the conditional use permit as issued, including there are 40 original conditions to the conditional use permit. Those were reincorporated into Elisa's November 1st staff report again, and we understand we need to comply with those. We're also well aware that 19 of those 40 conditions do require some kind of additional action, whether it's city staff or other regulatory approval, and those conditions have to be satisfied, we understand, before any building permit would be issued. So this really is just a time extension for us to satisfy the conditions that this body placed on the conditional use permit. I have a team with me. We're happy to respond to any questions. We also want to be respectful of your time because, at least in our view, this is not doing anything other than extending time consistent with the action that was previously taken by this body. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Debbie? John?
Thank you, Ms. Tomczyk. I appreciate you coming before this body and discussing this. I'm excited for the project. Can you tell us what kind of time frame you're looking at, how long it's going to take you to satisfy these and to move forward?
Well, I think I started working on this in 2014. To be honest, I wouldn't have imagined that we would have 7 lawsuits that we were moving forward. You were a party to a couple of those, the annexation lawsuit, which actually went up to the Supreme Court. The conditional use permit that's before you was also litigated, and that case was dismissed with prejudice. So it's hard for me to forecast some things that are beyond our control. We understand that the staff recommendation is for an additional year, which would then require us to come back for additional time if we were not able to meet the all of the conditions within the year that is before you.
Okay, thank you. Dave, Jerry, Ryan, and myself were present during that time frame too, back in 2014. So, you know, we've seen it. The genesis of this project, and we'd like to see it through. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Debbie? All right, thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Roger?
Continuing back to history, which many of us share.
3 minutes.
In deference to what Chuck and Deb just said, Chuck said there's only a narrow range to not renew, and he cited that provided that the permit that was issued met municipal ordinance, which my letter to this Plan Commission in November of 2020 clearly outlined how that the application does not meet any of the City of Sheboygan environmental overlay protection ordinances. The only thing that has changed since then is now that Kohler has announced they have developed a new plan for a golf course that will not require any wetland filling, which takes now the subject out of DNR's hands, but what remains is the reason DOA rescinded the wetland permit was based on testimony I gave to DOA that said The problem is the indirect impacts on the wetlands that remain, that extensive deforestation and regrading of about 2/3 of the land area has upon wetlands. So the wetland permit was rescinded for indirect effects. Now, Deb has nicely explained in her letter to you that they will have no direct effects, but all of the indirect effects will remain there. Something else physically has happened is the plans that were approved, there are greens and tees that became active lake bed and active beach during the 2021-22 high water period. So the physical situation has changed. The ordinary high water mark is about 120 feet west of where it was shown by the permit and the original plans in 2012. So what does have to change is there physically has to be a different plan. So from the technical aspects, I would disagree with the position stated both by Chuck and Deb. At least I did just send a PDF of that letter, and I've brought a hard copy. Deb probably remembers it. And then here's a copy.
Elise will send that to the commission members. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I would. I'm Dr. Belrose Reagans. I was wondering if you could hear me and if I could give a testimony.
Excuse me. Nope, you have to be present to publicly testify today. Online is just watching.
I was told by Elise Rose that we would have access because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, that I would have access to.
Thank you. Claudia?
I would like to recognize what Dr. Belrose.
We don't do public input from virtual. Virtual's watching only. Anyone else need to speak on this here?
That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong.
Scott.
The Americans with Disabilities Act, that's absolutely wrong. I'm sorry.
Scott, please mute
I'm
it.
really
Thank
sorry.
you.
There's no reason to exclude you. Yeah.
My name is Claudia Bricks. I have been studying, I live at 314 Pioneer Road in Sheboygan. I have been studying this golf course situation for over 10 years. I'm asking the commission, please do not extend the CUP until 2025. Demand a new application with detailed plans and have public hearings about them, please. Why? From what I have heard, Kohler has significantly changed their original golf course plans, so much so that it should be considered as a new project. Additionally, I strongly urge everyone on this commission to go walk the land where this golf course is proposed to be built. Look at the forest. Imagine all the wildlife that inhabits these acres when humans aren't around. Watch the birds come and go. Breathe in the fresh air. Walk by the shores of Lake Michigan and feel the grandeur of this great lake. Look at its clear blue waters and magnificence. Just stand there and take in this eloquent beauty. Now I want you to imagine that you erase all that and imagine that half of the beautiful old growth forest cut down, the magnificent dunes scraped down and bulldozed so that grass can be planted, and the lake burdened with toxic residue of herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers. Enjoy the view because it may be the last time you or anyone else will get to see it, unless you pay for a round of golf costing about $500. I've heard the tax revenue generated by the city from this course may be about $79,000. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, it sure is a shame to destroy this ancient and majestic land that is a mirror image of Kohler State Park, as both were part of the original 500-acre parcel Herb Kohler Sr. and Walter J. gave to the state for general public use in 1965. I encourage commission members to scrutinize this arrangement with Kohler before making any decisions. There is more here than meets the eye. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Mary?
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Fadash, and I'm associated with Friends of the Black River Forest. I live about 6 homes from where the Kohler project would be built. I just want to provide a little background. Sheboygan residents have never been told the truth about how Kohler's old course plan would impact them financially now or in the future. No one in city leadership spoke about the impacts to our lake, its shoreline. No impacts at all. Kohler economic benefits to the state were accepted without being verified. The public wasn't told that Kohler Andre State Park revenue exceeds Kohler's dubious, unverified economic data, repeated, unaltered for 12 years. Kohler Andre is one of 4 parks whose revenue supports the entire state park system. Kohler's business venture has shown no concern about altering the experience of this park for campers, visitors, altering the beach quality or air quality at the park, but continues its plan to irreparably alter a rare ecosystem because it can. And instead of using its own land for ingress and egress to its golf course, it chooses our public land instead. There have been no Kohler statements on how the company will alleviate the instant production of ground-level ozone created by hundreds of diesel machines operating during construction and ongoing maintenance of a championship golf course. This area of the lakeshore at Kohler Andre State Park has the highest level of ozone pollution in our state, consistently for decades. Using old traffic studies and stating a few hundred golfers daily will be using the course neglects the obvious. This will be a championship course, and any studies that are offered are useless and willfully misleading. FBRF is proud that we have held off this course's massive emissions of ground level pollution for 12 years, along with preventing millions and millions of pounds of pesticides and fertilizers from flowing into our groundwater in Lake Michigan, and we will continue our work. In the pre-annexation agreement with the city, Kohler agrees to cover all litigation costs the city will incur related to this golf course project. So today, you can do anything you want. The illegality of extending a defunct CUP for a new course which Kohler wants to be slipped in under an old permit does not have to be of any consequence to you. Having a city planning and development department also seems a wasted expense. Mr. Adams, city attorney, has already told Elise Rose of Planning and Development that she was compelled to recommend the extension request because the law required it. This was well before Kohler requested an extension on October 28th. Mr. Adams was wholly incorrect in his reading of the statute, but echoed Ms. Tomczak's opinion. The Kohler Company is asking you to extend a CUP issued for a course that could not be built because it could not obtain a required wetland fill permit. Their attorney says they can't show you this revised plan because they say they don't have it, but take their word for it. It is a much less environmentally destructive plan, which is only a revision of the 2020 design, now defunct. Insisting it is not a new course design, but they can show you a site plan, is preposterous. It is not only preposterous logically, it is preposterous legally. But of course, this is backed up by their limitless money to pay for any legal decisions you might make. This extension should be denied, and Kohler should be required to provide a site plan and apply for a new CUP because it is a new course. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak?
I just can't, yeah, no, they won't let it. People with disabilities aren't allowed to speak. You have to be there.
Right, come on up.
My
Please
name
state your
is,
name.
my name
That
is,
just, I was,
my name is Julie Felbab, and I'm associated with Friends of the Black River Group. I have some points here I would like to reintegrate so that while you are considering your CUP decision, the Plan Commission should deny this renewal request. There is one of two things going on. One, Kohler is asking you to renew a CUP for a golf course design that can't and won't happen based on court rulings and Kohler's own statement that it is redesigning the course. Or two, Kohler is asking you to effectively amend the CUP for a design you haven't seen yet, and that will be substantially different than designs that have come before. You shouldn't do either of these things. There is no reason to extend the CUP for a defunct project. You don't need to extend a permit for something that won't happen, and there's no basis in the ordinance for doing so. And you absolutely should not approve a CUP renewal for a project that will change without seeing the design. This is a CUP amendment, and this has to be handled through a new CUP process. What seems to be happening is that Kohler wants to extend its CUP so that it can amend the plan later, and it will claim the impacts are less so that they don't need to get a new or amended CUP. There's no basis in the last CUP or the ordinances for this. Any change to the plans requires a new CUP. That's especially true for the major changes Kohler says it is planning, like moving the maintenance building and the parking for 32 cars. That's especially, it also has a lot less real estate to work with now since so much of the shoreline has eroded away since 2019. The changes to the law on conditional use permits in 2017 does not change this. They don't force the city to renew or amend the permit without plans, even if the overall project impact is less than Kohler claims. While no Court of Appeals or Wisconsin Supreme Court cases have interpreted that law since it was enacted, the Wisconsin Legislative Council, which advises the legislature, confirms that local governments still retain substantial discretion to deny or condition CUPs. It's also totally inappropriate for Kohler to claim the city must renew the CUP based on the 2017 development agreement. The city may have said it would not oppose permits, but it cannot contract away its obligation to follow the law. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to speak?
I'm Mike Burnett, and I don't know anything, but I say basically give them the permit. It's a simple extension. Unless I'm really missing something, there's a little bit more shoreline than there was 5 years ago. That's something that comes and goes. Sounds like a pretty simple thing here.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to speak? All right, questions from commission members? John?
I don't really have any questions. I would just like to just make a few comments. I was here, as I mentioned previously, when the city annexed the property and when the development first started to take shape. And, you know, when the Friends of Black River opposed it back then, you know, I was involved in all that as well. So I've kind of seen this go full circle. I'm in favor of the extension. You know, Herb Kohler had a unique vision, and he had the drive to see it through. I'm encouraged by David Kohler now taking over the company and seeing his father's vision through. So it's fantastic. Originally, Kohler started in Sheboygan in 1873, and now, since it's been annexed, it has a chance to have a place in Sheboygan again. And I think it's a tremendous win for the city. It's a tremendous win for the county and for anybody that loves golf or recreation. If you go and look at Whistling Straits, it is one of the most unbelievably spectacular, beautiful properties that we have in the state. People come from all over the world to play that golf course. There is no negative impact on the fish or wildlife that is around that. So, you know, to say that this is going to have a negative impact, I think is false. And, you know, anything that Kohler does is first class, and they have a very aggressive, sustainable division of the company. They look at any way they can to be a more sustainable, environmentally responsible company. And I think what they're doing here with the mitigation of any of the wetlands, I think is a testament to that. And I'm going to approve it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Other questions from commissioners? All right, I got a couple questions for the applicant. So on page 10, under 2, it says 10 on the bottom of this page I'm looking at. I don't know if it lines up, but it says under 2, justifications for extension of CUP timeline limits. Kind of goes down a little bit, and it kind of gives some bullet points about the process of redesigning the golf course plans, and that's the justification for the extension. I guess I'll just kind of start it off. It says, look, you're looking at eliminating all direct impacts of wetland and avoiding all wetland filling. So what's the process for that? What's the timeline, and how does that wind in with the justification for an extension of the conditional use permit?
We are not submitting, nor have we submitted any new plans at this point. We are not asking for any amendments or plan revisions at this point. I don't know if it's proper to go through that at this point, but our intention is if there would be any changes, that it would be much less impactful than what had been approved before. But what's before you today is an extension of the 2020 CUP that was granted.
Yes, but it says on one of your justifications is that you're looking at the impacts that this has on this project has on wetlands. So I'm just curious what the timeline process for that is, and how does that line up with the extension request?
If we were making, it depends on what the permitting would be. We understand that conditions to that conditional use permit are that we have all of our regulatory permits in place from the DNR, Army Corps, et cetera. So that may vary which applications and which permits might be sought. It may be that we would have a different regulatory scheme than what was in place in 2020.
Okay. Because it's my understanding that one of the court cases was because there were issues with the wetland permit and the DNR, correct?
So just to be clear, so the Court of Appeals did find that the DNR had insufficient information to grant the wetland fill permit that was granted to us.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, I'm not a wetland expert by any means, but I'm just curious, it's a significant process to review impacts on wetland and working with the DNR and all the regulatory things. So I guess my question is a year justifiable for the extension with that timeline and thoroughly investigating impacts on wetlands? Is there more time that's going to be needed than a year?
Our hope is that we would be able to fit within that timeline. Under the statutes, we would be able to fit within that timeline, yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from commissioners? Motions from commissioners?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Other further discussion? Okay, we'll continue discussion then. So some other questions I have for the city attorney. So regarding this permit and this extension request, I guess what is the scope and what's the justification for your legal advice of this motion that's been made before us today that we're still discussing, and how it lines up for this conditional use project, and how do you define reasonable in the scope of the project?
Yeah. So what I would say is this, you cannot relitigate the issues that were litigated in 2020. You're here today just simply to determine whether the extension is appropriate. in considering whether the extension is appropriate, you can consider the fact that you have put these restrictions on the conditional use permit, the various restrictions that you placed there, the most key of which is a requirement to have all the required permits. If you believed that that condition is no longer meetable, that would be one thing. Here, the issue for you to decide is not so much to relitigate what you'd already decided, but whether the Kohler Company is capable of continuing with the project as you've approved it and is an extension appropriate in that regard.
Other questions for Chuck? All right, thanks, Chuck. All right, seeing no further discussion, there's been a motion and second. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any objections? All right, that is approved. One abstention. All right, next meeting is November 26th, 2024. We've exhausted the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned at 4:36.